Namaskar, Nilesh here in another session of Shraddha and Pradnya. In this session, we are going to discuss why Vakra or Vakri of the Mahabharata text is not equal to retrograde. But before we get into this, let us do a Purva paksha of other Mahabharata researchers, because majority of them, of course, there are some who don't say anything about Vakra and Vakri and what does that mean, because they have not bothered to look at any evidence, they have not read Mahabharata, and they are not aware of these Vakri references of Mars doing it twice, Jupiter doing it once in the Mahabharata text. So their situation is truly pathetic. Let's put them aside. But then there are a good number of Mahabharata researchers who will at least pretentiously claim that they have determined the year of Mahabharata war based on astronomy evidence. Even they don't talk about Vakra or Vakri. Now, those few who do talk about Vakra and Vakri, they claim that, come on, everybody knows Vakra, Vakri means retrograde. But this guy, Nilesh says Vakra or Vakri does not mean retrograde. What a laughable situation. That's how they pose it. Now, let's see the truth behind it. This is part 12 of Shraddha and Pradnya. So, let's do the Purva Paksha of this small group. The other folks, other Mahabharata researchers who do not even refer to this, they are not excused. Basically, they have absolutely no idea how a dating research or how a Mahabharata dating research is to be done. Now, if they chose the path of not using astronomy evidence and exclusively they focus on non-astronomy evidence, then they are definitely excused. Okay, now we can still ask them, whatever date they came up with, did they think of looking at astronomy evidence to see if it matches with them? And again, they are going to fail. Okay, they won't even get 35 marks out of 100. They won't get 1 mark out of 100, because that's a disaster for having the basic understanding of logical reasoning or scientific method. But let's even look at these folks, these Mahabharata researchers who pretend, or who, let's say, claim that they have used the astronomy evidence to arrive at the Mahabharata date. Now, those who don't even know this evidence, again, their situation is pathetic. But even those who know, you're going to find out how interesting the situation is. Let's go through the Purva Paksha, which is to say, to give them a benefit of doubt. Okay, let's take Vakra equal to Vakra/Vakri means retrograde as they claim. What is their justification? Let's go through that. This is as if like I am standing in their shoes, or we are standing in their shoes, and try to justify their position from their point of view, at least for the first half of this page. Okay, so number one, many Mahabharata researchers claim Vakra/Vakri equal to retrograde. Okay, now what is their evidence? What is their justification for making this claim? Well, in our times, if you look at a general astronomy discussion, or say astrology as in Phala Jyotish discussion, you will actually find in the current Indian astronomy or astrology both Vakra or Vakri is indeed, the word is indeed used in the sense of retrograde. So that can be used as a support for what they are claiming. Absolutely fair point. Okay, let's give them the due benefit. Yeah, everyone knows, they will say. Vakra, Vakri equal to retrograde. Go check internet, go check any Panchanga, go check any astrology text, Indian astrology text, they will say. And yes, you will indeed find Vakra, Vakri equal to retrograde. So guys, anybody has any confusion about this? Why is this guy Nilesh saying that Vakra or Vakri is not equal to retrograde? Okay, fair point. Now, those who don't know, their situation is really precarious, but those who do know or do claim that Mahabharata has astronomy evidence, and they also claim they used it to arrive at their claimed year for the Mahabharata war. They know, or they ought to know, if they don't know, then they are in trouble, that the Mahabharata text states Mars going Vakra Vakri in two places, near Nakshatra Magha and near Nakshatra Jyeshtha Anuradha. By the way, there is one more instance, that is Jupiter going Vakra Vakri near Nakshatra Shravan. Now, just focus on a Mars for a minute, because this is very important. Mahabharata text does describe two instances of Mars going Vakra Vakri, that's the word used, in two places, near Magha and near Jyeshtha Anuradha. Now, assuming by taking Vakra Vakri equal to retrograde, let's look at what do we know about Mars going retrograde. What we do know is that Mars goes retrograde on an average every 780 days. This is an average time period. If you convert that number, it comes to about 26 months. Okay. Now, remember, Mars has been described going Vakra Vakri twice. Okay, in the context of the Mahabharata war. So in principle, again, giving a benefit of doubt or trying to justify the position of these folks who claim Vakra Vakri equal to retrograde from their point of view, we might say, we are saying this in their support. In principle, then it's okay to say it is possible that Mahabharata astronomer might have noted down two consecutive retrogrades of Mars, like one before the Mahabharata war, one after the Mahabharata war. How do I say that? Because remember, the gap between two retrogrades is 26 months. Okay, so remember, plus minus 1 year or something like that, so you are, or plus minus 2 years, that's fine, but plus minus 1 year, here middle somewhere the Mahabharata war happened. It doesn't have to be exactly in the middle, but a Mars retrograde happened before the Mahabharata war. Mahabharata astronomer noted it down. Then another within the 26, 30 months period, another Mars retrograde happened after the Mahabharata war. And again, the Mahabharata astronomer noted it down with the intention of time stamping the event of Mahabharata war. So it's in principle is possible. Okay, great. One before the war, one after the war. So far, this all can be used in their support. So far, remember, they have claimed Vakra equal to retrograde. They have not necessarily opened their cards and shown the evidence, okay, if the Mahabharata descriptions match for their date. And now, although I'm including this in Purva Paksha because that's what their responsibility to show, now I'm going to show you what actually happens or what the reality is. The reality is that, unfortunately, after these guys claimed, or once they claim Vakra Vakra equal to retrograde, they do not, okay, which is to say not a single Mahabharata researcher bothers to or dares to show Mars going retrograde near Nakshatra Magha as described in the Mahabharata text, because Mahabharata text is describing it as a Vakra Vakri, and these guys are claiming that Vakra Vakri equal to retrograde. So naturally, they have to show Mars going retrograde near Magha. The second instance Mahabharata text describes is Mars going Vakra near Jyeshtha Anuradha. Again, using their definition of Vakra Vakri equal to retrograde, they ought to show Mars going retrograde near Jyeshtha Anuradha for their claimed year of Mahabharata war, before and after. Okay, so say before Magha and after they show going retrograde around Jyeshtha Anuradha. They don't do that. So the first 4 bullets, we can give them as a benefit of doubt. Actually, bullet number 3, it may or may not be mentioned. I just mention it in order to justify the situation from their point of view at this bullet number 5. That's why I just mentioned 2 instances. So the last bullet goes against them. So it's not like defending from their position. Their position cannot be defended because they have claimed something but never bothered to show Mahabharata evidence how it matches for their date. Okay, so big problem. Now let's do the Uttar Paksha, which is to say why Vakri or Vakra is not retrograde. Okay, pay attention, and I'm going to, of course, show you simulations. Okay. Mars descriptions of the Vakri itself, like so where Mars is described going Vakri, the specific nakshatra, it provides the insights. Something else, the additional evidence of Mars also provides insights, and we will see that here. Excuse me. If Mars goes retrograde near nakshatra A, now this is like a actual reality, and I'm going to show that through a simulation, 2 types of simulation, a 3-dimensional type of simulation, but also a actual astronomy simulation. So pay attention. If Mars goes retrograde near nakshatra A, some nakshatra A, it will go retrograde again within the space of A plus 4 nakshatras. Okay, so if it goes nakshatra at A, then the next retrograde will happen somewhere between from that nakshatra plus 4 nakshatra. It will never be beyond that, the next retrograde. Okay, now why is this important? Because now let's go to the Mahabharata text. And what Mahabharata text is saying, Mahabharata text describes Mars going Vakra at Magha and then again at Jeshta, Anuradha. Now remember, I always keep on saying you need to have the list of nakshatras by heart in that proper sequence and should able to read it backward or forward even in your sleep. Okay. Now the distance between Magha and Anuradha is 7 nakshatras. Now remember, the 2 consecutive retrograde can only happen at A and A plus 4. So total of like 5 nakshatras, never like a 7 nakshatras. In fact, these would be more. So for example, let's do the count. So from Magha, now we will not count Magha. We'll start with the next one. So Purva Falguni, Uttara Falguni, Hasta, Chitra, and we are done. Which is to say A plus 4. So the next retrograde should have happened somewhere near Chitra or Hasta. It cannot go beyond that. But beyond Chitra, what do we have? We have a Swati, we have a Vishakha, and we have a Anuradha. Everyone follows what I'm doing? So total of like, including Magha and Anuradha, there are total of 8 nakshatras. So I'm just saying space of a 7 nakshatras. Now, Mahabharata text describes Mars going Vakri near Jeshta Anuradha. Anuradha and then comes Jeshta. So if you take a distance between Magha and Jeshta, then it is 8 nakshatras. So what does that tell you? These cannot be 2 consecutive retrogrades of Mars. Okay. So any Mahabharata researcher claiming Vakra equal to retrograde has to demonstrate Mars going retrograde consecutively, first near Magha and then Jeshta Anuradha. Now, what is the problem? Based on that rule, which I'm going to demonstrate using 2 types of simulations, that this is impossible astronomy speak. In fact, that was the insight for me. Okay, to start thinking Vakri cannot be retrograde. Otherwise, I was also perfectly aware that Vakri or Vakra meant retrograde in contemporary Indian astronomy and astrology. Okay, now something else. In addition, so yes, this one is not making sense. The way they are described going Vakra or Vakri near Magha and Anuradha Jeshta, they are not separated by like a less than 4 plus nakshatra. That is one problem, a big problem, not one problem. But now, in addition, Not a single Mahabharata researcher claiming Vakra equal to retrograde. I said that in a Purva paksha, but I'm bringing that again. So they are claiming something, but then running away from trying to back up what they are claiming. Not a single Mahabharata researcher claiming Vakra equal to retrograde has demonstrated Mars going retrograde near Magha and Jeshta again at Jeshta. So these are empty words. Shabda Jnananupati Vastu Shunyo Vikalpaha. That is what Bhagwan Patanjali says. Shabda Jnananupati. They're claiming something verbally. Shabda Jnan. But Vastu Shunyo Vikalpa. They cannot back their words with a demonstration through astronomy for what is shown in the Mahabharata text, what they are claiming. It leads to confusion, it leads to delusion, it leads to their own confusion of these Mahabharata researchers. But unfortunately, it leads to the delusion and confusion of their followers. Okay. All right. So big problems here. Something else. On the other hand, Mahabharata text provides a clear description of Mars going retrograde near Chitra and Swati at the time of Mahabharata war. And when I say a clear description, remember, we understood what retrograde means through multiple sessions, with the help of simulation. And anytime Mars goes retrograde, what happens? It starts moving in the apasavya direction, in non-normal direction. It becomes scary bright, extra bright. It becomes steady in one place. Okay. And all that with a specific nakshatra information is given in the Mahabharata text. When it says, Dhruva prajvalito ghoram apasavya pravartate chitra swatyantare chaiva dishtita parusha graha. Okay. And we also have an additional clue when Karna says to Krishna, Visheshena hi Varshneya Chitra Pidiyate Graha Nunam Mahadbhayam Krishna Kurunam Samupastitam Visheshena hi Varshneya Chitra Pidiyate Graha. This particular planet, Angarak, which is Mars, is in a very peculiar fashion afflicting, giving pida, giving a torturing Nakshatra Chitra. So that all beautifully explained there. That's why I said it's a clear description. So it's already given. So now are we talking of 3 retrogrades? Go figure. Again, nobody has interpreted that verse. Surprise, surprise. Okay, what I have shown, the Dhruva Prajvalitam Ghoram Apasavya Pravartate Chitra Swatantere Chaiva Dishtita Parushagra or Visheshene Varshneya Chitra Pidyategra is referring to the retrograde motion of Mars. Nobody else has shown even awareness of it. Okay, big problem. But just even above that, we know why Vakri cannot be retrograde, as based on the Mahabharata evidence of Mars Vakri motion itself, because it's going Vakri, whatever it is, near Magha, and then again near Jeshta. So if somebody translates Vakri equal to retrograde of Mahabharata, then they have to show these two retrogrades, consecutive retrogrades, okay, near Magha and then Jeshta, and that is astronomy speak impossible. All right, so that is where we are going to stop. I am going to share the simulation. So let's first do the 3-dimensional simulation of Amreshji. Okay. All right. Let's see. It gets bigger. For some reason, page unresponsive. All right. Let's see. I might have to reload the page. Let's see. All right, let me stop sharing. Let me go here, and I might have to edit this piece so that you're not bored when I had to do this. So close here. All right. Motion of planets. No. Okay. All right, let me share. Okay, so I am going to deselect Saturn and Jupiter. Let's make a bigger space here. Okay, all right. So what I would like to demonstrate here, we only have Mars, Earth, and the Sun, and want to show that the consecutive retrograde of Mars occurs within a space of 4 nakshatras. This every line, the space between the line is like, think of that as a 1 nakshatra space, okay? And the total circle is divided in 27. So let's start the animation. So right there was that retrograde, okay? So say here, so I'm going to say 1, let's see, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's where I'm going to put my cursor. So the next retrograde, when it happens, it is going to happen somewhere there. Okay, so now that it happened here, let's say I go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so I'm going to put it here. So you'll start getting an idea what I'm referring to. Look, it happened within that 4 space, 4 nakshatra space. So from here, I'll go 1, 2, 3, and 4. So somewhere here. It cannot be after. Okay, so that's the point. There we go. It went retrograde there. So if I have to count from here, I'll say 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. Okay, so the next retrogression of Mars will occur before that point, before where my arrow is. There you go. Okay, so from there, let's say, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so the next retrogression is going to happen before this line. Okay, so I have put the arrow here. There we go. Just right at the here. So I will count from here 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is where the arrow is. The next retrogression has to occur before this arrow. There, you see, it's very consistent. It will happen, it has to happen within the 4 nakshatra space, okay? The 2 consecutive retrogrades of Mars. All right, I think it's clear to you. I am going to pause it, stop it, and stop sharing. Then I want to show this same thing using a astronomy software. Okay, as if like this is not sufficient. Okay, so let's do this. And for that, I have picked, say, yeah, let me do this. So share, correct? Okay, yeah. All right. So for this, what I've done is started date, our times, very much contemporary times, our times, January 1st, 2000. And we will go for a few years, right? We'll go for, say, 10 years and note down the retrograde of Mars and note down the nakshatra. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to set this as a step change of 1 day. And let's continue. We started from Shatabhishesh, 1st of January 2000. So I will slow it down and stop it when it is ready for retrograde. And we will note down the nakshatra. So here it is, okay? So near nakshatra Mula, okay? So if I do this as a 2-day step change, I can show it to you. It's going backward, the upper Savya motion, okay? From Mula, it is going towards Jeshta now, as you can see. And let's see what kind of shape it creates. Okay, it kind of created a very narrow type of parikrama type of circles. Okay, all right, so now it's going further. So think of this as a Mula Jeshta, or think of Mula, because that's how far it had gone. So the next one is going to be what? Purva, Bhadra, Purvashada, Uttarashada, Shravan, and Dhanishta. Okay, so it cannot go beyond Dhanishta. Now, keep that in mind. Here, we are looking at Yogatara, of each nakshatra, and they are not equally spaced. So when I say Dhanishta, it cannot go beyond Dhanishta. That's usually the case, but don't be surprised if it goes to Shatabhishaj, okay, another one, or slightly even higher than Shatabhishaj, because we are now looking at the nakshatra yogatara and not exactly the nakshatra space, where exactly it went retrograde and so on. So let me turn this to 1 day again, and let's go. So now it's going to go for 26 months on an average approximately, and it will have its next retrogression. So when it slows down and goes retrograde, 26 months have gone by in our simulation. Okay, just keep that in mind. All right, it's stopping here, and look what it did. Exactly what I had predicted. So from the Yoga Tara perspective, actually, just visually at least, it looks like it went beyond Shatabhishaj. That's what I had said, it can happen. Okay, so let's look at the Mars right ascension, 2255, and Shatabhishaj is 2205. So it did go ahead of Shatabhishaj. That will happen because we are trying to count the nakshatras here in the simulation using yogatara of a nakshatra and not the nakshatra space. So it may look like as if like a 4 or 5 nakshatra or something like this. In reality, keep in mind, it's going to be within 4 nakshatra space. Okay. All right. So now it's going to go backward, apasavya motion, made a complete circle, like a parikrama type of thing. Okay. And it's going again. Let's look at the, let's wait for the next retrogression. So that was at Shatabhishaj Purva Bhadrapada. So think of as a Uttara Bhadrapada, Revati, Ashwini, Bharani. So it has to be around Bharani. Okay, let's see, or before. There. See, notice it just came slightly ahead of Bharani, the Bharani Yogatara, still within Bharani, and went back, which is to say it is retrogressing. Mars is retrogressing in a Bharani nakshatra, within that 4 nakshatra again. So we'll use this as a Bharani. And so backward, now it went forward. So the next one, Kritika, Rohini, Mrugashirsha, Ardra. So it will happen somewhere near Ardra. Okay. It may happen slightly before Ardra, it may happen slightly after Ardra, the Yogatara of Ardra. In fact, I have noted down 2 Yogataras of Ardra, okay? So don't be surprised. All right, let's see. There we go, okay? You noticed at that it came at the Ardra 2 just before Punarvasu, and now it's turned Apasavya backward. Let's do one more and we can stop. Okay, so now we will count since Ardra is done. Okay, so now it's going forward. We are going to say next retrogression after going through the whole circle 26 months is going to be near, say, Punarvasu, Pushya, Ashlesha, Magha. Okay, so 4 nakshatra, and from a nakshatra yoga tara perspective, somewhere near Magha, it can go up to Purva, Falguni, it can go up to Uttara Falguni. No, we'll just see. But this is from a visual look in our astronomy software. As far as the nakshatra space is concerned, we are always looking at 4 nakshatra space. So that's like about 50 degree. There we go. Sorry, it's going back. Okay, where did it go back? Around Ashlesha and Pushya. Yeah. So see, it has done at Ardra there for a visual look. Then it went through Punarvasu, Pushya, and Ashlesha. It did not even go beyond Ashlesha. But that's what to remember. So because we are looking at, again, Yoga Tara of a nakshatra, visually, it may appear sometime like only 3 nakshatra space and other times 5 nakshatra space. Just keep in mind, as far as the length of a nakshatra goes, it's about 50 degrees, okay, or 4 nakshatra space. Let's do one more. So right now it did at Ashlesha, okay? So skip Ashlesha. We have now Magha, Purva Falguni, Uttara Falguni, Hasta. So the next retrogression will happen near Hasta. Now keep in mind, it can happen near Uttara Falguni, that is one before. It can happen near Chitra, which is the next one too. Let's see, and then after that we will stop. Okay, so all I'm showing is that the retrogression of Mars, or a consecutive retrogression of Mars, happens within 4 nakshatra space. it cannot happen within that a 7, 8, or 9 nakshatra space that is here. The way it is described in the Mahabharata text. Therefore, Vakri cannot be retrograde. Here it went up to Uttara Falguni and turned backward. And I have given a benefit of doubt and say, hey, it can go up to Hasta or even Chitra. So again, visually, that's how it will appear. In this case, Uttara Falguni. So it happened at Ashlesha. I can show you where that Ashlesha is right here. So then it went, in this case, 3 nakshatra, additional 3 nakshatra. From a nakshatra space point of view, it would be about 4 nakshatra space. Hopefully, you understand what this means. Okay, so I'll just get to that slide again. Okay, so here. Okay, so why Vakri is not retrograde? Because, or we can go now quickly visit the Purva paksha. Okay, and then second slide. So many Mahabharata researchers claim Vakra equal to retrograde. Okay, from their point of view, we can give them a benefit of doubt because Vakri is indeed considered retrograde in modern Indian astronomy and astrology. Now, so far so good, but now let's understand the Mars goes retrograde every 26 months. And something else, the consecutive retrogression happens with a separation of 4 nakshatra, not more than 4, less than 4 nakshatra. So in principle, we can give them a benefit of doubt. The Mahabharata astronomer maybe noted down 2 consecutive retrogression of Mars, one before the war, one after the war. So far, so good. But now we know the problem. First thing, no Mahabharata researcher who claims Vakra equal to retrograde then bothers or dares to show Mars going retrograde near Magha and Jyeshta Anuradha, which means they don't understand what they're talking. In one way, they're saying Vakra equal to retrograde. That's what Mahabharata is saying. Come on. And now we say, all right, Mahabharata is saying Mars going retrograde near Magha, Mars going retrograde near Jyeshta Anuradha. But please show it to us for your ear. And total silence. Okay, or some confusion, going on a tangent, confusing the common audience. Those are the means that are used. In Nyaya Darshana, they go under different types of negative things, and immediately such people are to be declared as losers. Okay, they lost the battle, they lost the debate, they lost their claim. And some of the things that they use are, for example, we talk about using the Vada, but after that, we talk about Jalpa, Vitanda, Hetva, Bhasa, Chala, Jati, and various types of Nigraha Sthanam, which is like these illogical claims. Like you claim something, but you cannot show. As Bhagwan Patanjali says, Shabda Jnananupati Vastu Shunyo Vikalpa, or even Viparyayo Mithya Jnanam Atadrupa Pratishtam. You are claiming one thing, but then you are doing exactly opposite of that. So you are very proudly claiming Vakra equal to retrograde, but then go silent, okay? Hide your face to actually show Mars going retrograde near Magha, Mars going retrograde near Jyeshta Anuradha for the whatever year these Mahabharata researchers are claiming. And then as a Uttar Paksha, as a response, we are saying Vakri is not retrograde. Vakri cannot be retrograde. Vakri of a Mahabharata text cannot be retrograde. Why? Because the description themselves provide the sites, okay? Because consecutive retrograde, suppose one happens at A, then the next will happen at A plus 4. It cannot be beyond that. And that's what I showed you through these 2 types of simulation, okay? One through the demo piece that Amaresh Ji has created, and the second through Karina Soft's Voyager astronomy software, okay? Now, Mahabharata text describes Vakra at Magha, Vakra at Jyeshta Anuradha. The distance between them is 7 or 8 nakshatra, so they cannot be the consecutive ones. And of course, the bigger issue is those people who claim Vakra equal to retrograde refuse to and actually fail to show retrograde Mars going retrograde near Magha, Jyeshta Anuradha for their year. Now, how do we know that? How do I know that? Because for each of these people who have a date, like, I'm just going to say few dates, but there are many more. So 1793 of Ashok Bhatnagarji, 1478 of Professor R.N. Iyengar, I'm talking of those only who give a specific year. Like there are likes of Shrikant Talagiriji who just hand waves and says 1400 BCE, or Dr. Conrad Ernst, who will say somewhere, I don't know, but somewhere in 2000. No, we can't do anything. They're not giving a specific year. But take Dr. Dieter Koch, he says 1197. We can test that, and no retrograde near Maga and Jeshtanuradha. 3067, K.S. Raghavan, Narahari H.R., Manish Pandit, D.K. Hari. Absolutely not. Then 3126 BC of Ramesh Panchavag, 3136 of Dr. Jayashree Saranathan, 3137 of Professor Subhash Kak, 3138 of Kota Venkatachalam, who used to be a Shankaracharya, who was a Shankaracharya. 3139, I forget who said that, 3140 of Saroj Balaji, 3143 of P.V. Hole, and also in modern times, somebody just repeated that claim, Dr. M.L. Raja, 3162 of Vedavir Aryaji. I mean, you can just go on, and none of these folks show Mars going retrograde near Maga and Jeshtanuradha for their year. All right. I think you are smart enough to make a conclusion on your own. So this is impossible astronomy speak. In addition, not a single Mahabharata researcher shows that, which is what I said. On the other hand, Mahabharata actually gives another description of Mars going retrograde near Chitraswati, and it is right on the money if you understand what retrograde is. So therefore also Vakri cannot be retrograde. All right. And then next time in the next episode, what we will do is, if Vakra is not retrograde, then of course the question comes, what actually, let me just do that anyways here. If Vakra is not retrograde, now that is what I am claiming, then naturally I cannot just claim Vakra is not retrograde and just run away like these other Mahabharata researchers who claim Vakra is equal to retrograde but refuse to show how that particular definition matches for the Mahabharata evidence for their claimed year for Mahabharata war. So if I'm asserting that Vakra is not retrograde, I gave you my logic and rationale, but then the question is, what is Vakra? Because Mahabharata text is saying it in 3 places. So how can one go about answering it? Let me just go through this. We might repeat this portion in the next episode, because that's where I'm going to show you, not with the Amarishji simulation, because it's a demo piece. It doesn't have the finesse to show what I want to show, but using the astronomy software, I'm going to show you. And I have already given you clues in the previous episodes that what is that Vakra we are looking for. So I studied different motions of Mars, actually going for hundreds of years in using simulation, hundreds of years, guys, and not just 100 years in one particular location, like say 6th millennium BCE, near 5561 BC. I studied it in our times, like literally I'm talking 21st century and 20th century. I did that say 1,000 years ago, going back to say 1000 CE, going back 2000 years, going back 4000 years to 2000 BC, to 5000 years to 3000 BC, 10,000 years ago to say 8000 BC, just to understand what are the different possible motions of Mars that are possible. And of course, Jupiter, but Mars, because it has got 2 data points. Based on that, I proposed that what Mahabharata astronomer means for Vakri is not retrograde, but by Vakra or Vakri, Vasudev is referring to oblique crossing of a planet, whether it's Mars or Jupiter, because those are the 2 references in the Mahabharata text in the context of Vakri or Vakra across the ecliptic. And I'll explain that next time. Then what I did is I tested the Mars motions and Jupiter's motion in the year 5561 BC. Remember, if that's what I'm claiming, Vakra equal to Vakra or Vakra equal to oblique crossing of a planet, then I have 2, and I have 3 references in the Mahabharata text. And I am claiming 5561 BC as the year of Mahabharata war, which means the responsibility is on me to show what I am claiming, Vakra equal to oblique crossing, to show that that is true for Mars and that is true for Jupiter. And there are 3 instances to check this. I demonstrated that Mars indeed obliquely crossed the ecliptic near Maga, and again near Jyeshta Anuradha. And Jupiter indeed obliquely crossed the ecliptic near Nakshatra Shravan. All three instances as described in the Mahabharata text in the context of Vakra and Vakri. Okay, that's what I will demonstrate next time. But something else. Just like we saw additional description of Mars, which actually showed Mars going retrograde near Chitra and Swati with beautiful description of Apasavya motion, Mars becoming extra scary bright near Chitra Swati, that could be demonstrated for year 5561 BCE, and Mars can be shown to go retrograde near Chitra Swati. You have seen that episode. Now, you can ask the same question, or we ought to ask the same question about Jupiter. Okay, because if Jupiter's Vakra is described as obliquely crossing of Jupiter across the ecliptic near Shravan, then the question to ask, the third bullet from the last, is if Jupiter went Vakra, that is to say oblique crossing of the ecliptic near Shravan, then where did Jupiter go retrograde at the time of Mahabharata war? Now, we are not just asking questions in a thin air. The reason we are asking is retrograde motions are very interesting motions. And usually a person, like in this case, Bhagwan Vyasadeva, who is trying to use so much super rich astronomy evidence at the time of Mahabharata war, he is embedding it into the Mahabharata text so that we can use that as clues to figure out when the Mahabharata war happened. Of course, the verse can be lost. The verse might have been lost. The reference might have been lost. But at least proactively, we should look if Vyasadeva has described the retrograde motion of Jupiter. Because I am saying Vakri is not retrograde, right? So does Mahabharata text describes retrograde motion of Jupiter? And the answer is yes. And it does match. So it says, yeah, if yes, does it match and corroborate 5561 BC? I'm already giving out the answer, saying yes, indeed, the retrograde motion of Jupiter, the way I showed it to you in the simulation, is indeed described in the Mahabharata text, and it indeed matches for 5561 BC. But everything that you're seeing on this slide, we are going to revisit, and I'm going to walk you through simulations to explain if Vakra is not retrograde, then what is Vakra? What does that mean? And how it is validated for Mars and Jupiter. And of course, then we'll stop with that question. So if Vakra is not retrograde, then how is Jupiter's retrograde motion described in the Mahabharata text? And that's where we will stop next time. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Please share these videos, subscribe, hit on all those buttons, to get the notification. I think they say bell icon or something. All right, with that, I will stop sharing. Namaskar. Talk to you soon.